Okay, so here's my review. I tried it last night. Today's my day of rest. I didn't brush my teeth or wash my face, so please excuse me the way I'm looking. Okay, so Black Panther. I wrote it was a disappointment and I needed some testosterone. Where was the male leadership? And I talked about pandering. I already knew that me writing it that way was already going to irritate, provoke certain types of people because that's just who we are as humans, right? And I know why do something that would provoke people? Because I just felt like it. Because that's how I felt in the moment when I wrote it. Anyway, so getting to the point. I respect Ryan Coogler as a writer and a director. Period. There's no buts. The movie, as usual, is well shot, well done, well written. It just is, right? The characters are three-dimensional. So I don't need to get into that. That's I'm fine with. I want to kind of scale back and just talk about this agenda that seems to be happening. Um, One thing I love about art is when art speaks for itself and it doesn't feel as if this is what I'm doing. Look at me, I'm doing this thing. It feels like Marvel has been doing this thing where, look at us, we're uplifting the powerful women. Ooh, look at us. And it's like, women are powerful, yes. Women have been oppressed, yes. Yes, yes, yes. I get it. And as people who know me would understand that I'm not like male tyranny and like that's not my thing. I criticize men like so don't take this as like, oh, she's one of those that stop trying to put in one of those. Um but it just feels like there's a lot of pandering happening. Like um you know how there was white guilt, but then eventually it led to white resentment and that's how we got Trump. I feel like there's women guilt, right? The Me Too guilt, the guilt from all these things, and so now there's this like heavy sway to be like women, 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 and I love me my women shows, but I mean girlfriends existed, living like we had stuff that was always just there because it just was. And I guess I'm one of those people like let's let art speak for itself. We don't need to have these agendas like interwoven into it because it seems too loud. It's like we get it. And we can uplift women without removing the men, right? Like I think that's possible. I think there's a balance to that, which leads me to Wakanda. In the first movie of Black Panther, I think it was so well loved. Not only was it well done and celebrated the different tribes of different countries in Africa, and it created this like idea of our continent has a lot of resources, has a lot of amazingness, and we need to keep it safe because if we don't, this is what happens. Like, you know, colonizers, like those type of jokes and stuff. It was warm. We saw ourselves, men and women were both empowered in that. And with that, Chadwick Boseman, the man actor, being such a man of integrity and character and wisdom and that quiet power that he had as a human, was able to bring that into the role of Black Panther as a hero and king. His strength, his nobility, his integrity just spoke loud. It emanated from the screen. Like he was the Black Panther. He made Black Panther, right? And as powerful as he was, it was very clear he respected, revered, and was influenced by the women he chose to surround himself with, right? Okay. But there was still a balance. He was still king, he was still head, but he still had respect and reverence for women, and he looked to them for his support because he knew without them, his kingdom would fall. So there was a beautiful balance that I saw. I also want to acknowledge that I believe in man being the head, not male. Just because you have a penis doesn't mean that you get to lead anything. I think a lot of these males think that because they have a penis, they need to be like, "Arr," and that's why you have women going like, no. And then we have this like this dichotomous fight happening between men and women, especially Black men and women. I'm just throwing that away. Talking about Black Panther. So Wakanda painted this picture of what it looks like for men and women to be equal, men and women to have their own positions though, right? And so when you look at when I think of Black Panther, I see this. I see Chadwick as king and hero, right? King T'Challa and Black Panther. I see his warrior who was I forget her name in the movie, what played by Danielle. And then I see Lupita, right, who's love interest, but also someone he heavily respects, who was like a spy of Wakanda, whatever, whatever. And you saw that triangle, you saw how powerful they work together. And then you see the queen, who's his mom, that he respects and has wisdom and he loves. Then you see his sister, who's this genius, who's like smart mouth, like, but she's great and amazing, right? And you just see how he's just surrounded by these amazing women, right? Okay, part two. Ryan could have done this on purpose. And if he did this on purpose, he's a genius. I'm pretty sure he did do this on purpose. When I watched Black Panther, I felt empty. I felt like the soul of the movie was gone. And maybe that was because I'm the power and starhood of Chadwick as Black Panther being gone was so palpable that it just and I knew he wasn't going to be in the movie, so I don't know what I was expecting, but I just felt so like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Where's the leadership? Now, someone put in my comment section, like, I think Wakanda showed what it looks like when all their men have gone away. Like, when you lose your king, the dad died, the son now died, the actual actor, God rest his soul, and which then brings, of course, the Black Panther passing away, Marvel cutting, and what does it look like when you're left as the mother having to kind of step in the role of leadership? First you were king and queen, your king died, your son became king, you were still queen but queen mother, but you got to sit back and mourn, but be proud of your son, still be mom to your daughter, right? And now both men in your life are gone, and now you're the queen of this nation, grieving the loss of the two loves of your life. And then you have this daughter, right? And they're both grieving. You have the army and the army official who revered the status of king in Black Panther, who was dedicated and loyal to that. You have these people, these women grieving. And so what does it look like as these women grieving to still protect their... I get that. And that's what I was going to talk about. And so you see that. So this is where, which is probably unfair to the movie, is where I was kind of like, ugh. Because I saw Woman King in October, and it was very much all of that, seeing it again, even though it's a different context, still to me just felt like, ugh. Like I already saw powerful women fighting, like it was already done. And that sounds so sad, right? Because it's like, Black Panther, Wakanda is a whole other entity. It's Marvel, it's make-believe, but it also has its own stuff. Woman King had its own stuff. It had its criticisms, right? You had a lot of Black men who hated the movie because they felt it was an agenda to wipe out Black men and their power. There's always an agenda, so I'm not going to say that's not true. There's always an agenda. I believe that. Sometimes I believe conspiracy theories more than I do the stuff that we see on television, like the news. I'm kind of like, conspiracy theory, the news, this conspiracy theory seems more realistic than what the news is giving me right now, right? But I don't even watch the news anymore. Like, I can't. Anywho, so I know The Woman King had its own criticism. I personally loved it. I loved the movie. I love that it was based off of a historical thing. It was a fictitious movie based off of historical events and people. I know there was an issue that these women and the king was a part of the slave trade of they captured neighboring villages, and the people that they captured, if they didn't kill them, they captured them, they sold them to slavery to European folks for money and all that other stuff. And so we saw that, but we saw the male king he had a male and a female male and female like advisors, right? So you see the king, male and female advisor. Viola Davis was one of the female advisors who was ahead of the group of women who protected the village and kingdom. Right? Okay, so once again, you see male leadership who, whatever. Now the other male advisor felt his way about Viola, as some males do, like, why you gotta be the way you are? Like, why you gotta be you? And she's like, I'm going to be me because that's who I am. You have a problem, talk to the king about it. Don't talk to me, right? It is what it is. This is my assignment. I'm gonna do my assignment. Now people had critics, but that still had that, right? And then you saw the antagonistic male. a lot of aggression there too, a lot of testosterone or whatever. But you saw the balance of a balanced king who was wise and wanted to listen to counsel, and you saw this arrogant, braggadocious, just ruthless male with just testosterone pumping, full of greed and an insatiable appetite for power. And you saw how that consumed him, and it was like ill. So we see what that leadership looks like. We don't want it. We saw this king. Okay. Now, Woman King had his issues also because they're like, oh, they're glorifying women warriors when these women warriors. It's from the brief history I did and from this documentary that I saw, there's a lineage of history about this particular tribe and group where they had so many. Those women didn't live forever. That particular king did not live forever. And so is it possible that in this snapshot of time, there was a king who was influenced by a woman who was the head at the time that felt like, hey, this is wrong what we're doing. This is something that we've been doing for generations. Yes, and it is wrong. What does it look like if we did this instead? Is it possible that that took place back in the day? Possibly. Possibly. But that movie did not take away from the fact that these erroneous things were done, right? So anyway, all that to say, I liked Woman King because that's what I was expecting to see. It is what it was, and I loved it, and it was beautiful for what it was. So then I think because I saw Woman King and then I'm coming to Black Panther and I'm so used to this balance of the masculine and feminine and this and seeing the ways that the masculine and feminine, if not handled well, if wounded, can come off a certain way, and then how the healthy versus the unhealthy, like what that looks like. There was just always a balance in the Black Panther movie. So coming back to it, understanding that the star is gone with the movie of Women King, it just felt redundant to me. It felt redundant. Although I understand two different movies, two different contexts, two different worlds. I understand that. The reason I'm doing it that way is because people can listen and hear things and they take what they want. I have to be really clear, hands and everything, just so that you can hear what I'm trying to communicate. Okay. So there was a mourning that was happening for me too. And so that's why I said I think Ryan Coogler was a genius if this was purposeful, of what does it look like when a strong, powerful, amazing, noble, and a leader with integrity is gone? What does that look and feel like? And it feels empty. It feels hollow. So although the culture is still beautiful, although the characters are still beautiful, although there's still beauty and power and vivaciousness in this place we call Wakanda, there is a hole that is missing. And I felt that throughout the whole entire movie. And this is spoiler alert, spoilers of all days. M'Baku was in the movie. I was so happy when he was there. Now, of course, M'Baku had an arc, right? His character arc, where towards the end there was an allegiance that happened where at one point they weren't rocking with them. They were like, we're gonna be in the cold, we are so far away from you that in Africa where it's hot, we are in the snow. That's how far away we are from you. Which I think is really funny on how that was too. Like, we are so far away and disconnected that it is snowing cold all day, every day here. But I like the arc. But M'Baku still had this M'Baku-ness even in his arc. Seeing him in the second movie, maybe his arc continued, but he didn't feel as and not as far as like unevolved. I'm trying to say evolved, but the opposite of that. So just not evolved. He didn't seem and primitive. He didn't seem like the primitive, like that's not what I'm looking for. But he was missing his like a spirit, and maybe because he was mourning his brother, right? Maybe that's it. But it still felt like you still get to be you, and I felt like he was like the Claude a little bit. I don't know. I just felt like he wasn't as he could be. Even if he's supporting actor, M'Baku still gets to be M'Baku. Whether he's playing a supporting role in the movie and then a supporting character to Letitia Wright's character, Shuri, either or, you still get to be M'Baku. And I felt like he was kind of like washed out a little bit. Is that just me? He just felt a little washed out. And then Daniel's character wasn't in there, which they alluded to saying like because the treason of being with Killmonger and all that he did, that he was in whatever. So I'm happy that they mentioned his name, that they acknowledged that his presence is not here, and they gave a reason why. I love when people do that in movies. Thank you for telling us why, and it makes sense based off of the first movie. Okay. And then Killmonger was dead. So I was like, where the males at? Like, where are they? And so, yes, what does Wakanda look like when these head women are just left on their own without a leader? They have to step up and they have to make it work. And they did a great job at that. And so, even though I was disappointed, it felt pandering to me, but with looking and thinking about it, and I was like, it most likely wasn't pandering. It's just unfair that because of all the pandering that's happening in the Marvel universe and then just in the world, that once this movie came out and you see this, it feels like, here we go again. When in fact it probably wasn't. And I'm sure it wasn't. But it felt pandering. And so I may just be annoyed with the pandering nonsense of women power, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is where I did get a little annoyed. So, a new character. Okay, so, man, there's so much in this movie. So, there's a character from the comics who is one of the oldest people alive. It's supposed to be Marvel's, what did he tell me? Because I spoke to a homeboy about this who's a big comic book fan. It's Marvel's version of Aquaman. Namore or whatever, and they turned him into a ancient Mayan Aztec, which I loved. And because Ryan Coogler does such a good job with culture, I felt like he did his research in understanding symbols, language, some of the details of the actual livelihood of like indigenous folks losing visibility and almost being wiped out by the white conquistadors. Spaniards, but they were in Europe. They're all white. There's white people who speak Spanish. Don't get mad at me, people. I'm sorry. I mean, you can get mad. I'm not sorry. But the conquistadors or whatever. So it breaks down to like, this is what happened to this group of people. Conquistadors, the colonizers, came to our land too, annihilated our people, gave us smallpox. We found this herb that is similar to the herb that they have in Wakanda. We did our things. We drank it. We turned blue. We ended up living in the water. This is how we got. And we built this beautiful empire. And who was the leader? This little boy who was born of the mom who took the thing. And he was the first one born. And he had little things on his feet, right? Okay. His character, I like that Ryan didn't make him seem too much of the bad guy. But he still was kind of like an antagonistic character. But I don't like the fact that antagonistic characters are always the men who want to take care of their people. Like Killmonger. All right, I didn't see Killmonger as the bad guy. I saw Killmonger as a traumatized, hurt, bitter, resentful, consumed with anger and revenge little boy in a man body with a lot of intelligence and a lot of fight in him, right? But his heart, deep down inside, was what his dad planted in him, which is African diasporic unity and us coming together to fight back our oppressors, right? And so that was Killmonger's thing. I don't think he was wrong. Killmonger's thought process, I was like, yeah, you're just not going about it the right way at all. Like, why we gotta be disrespectful and kill family? Like, why? Like, why don't you ask questions? Like, that would be helpful. So what made Killmonger the bad guy was that he was so like laser focused that he was harmful in the process. And you saw what his leadership looked like. Very dictatorship, very disrespectful, very negligent to the women, very much do what I say. I would put hands on you, woman, if I need to, because I said what I said. So we know what that male leadership looks like. And it didn't look anything like T'Challa's, right? And so we already know that. And any person, especially women who's underneath that type of leadership, has every right to want to rebel and need to finding their voice, right? Because being under that too long is insufferable. And I mean, we see that in life, and that's why we are where we are today, right? So, but I don't think Killmonger was the bad guy. And so I really wish there was an arc with him, but